The Maryland eviction notice. What is an eviction notice? Eviction notice, or notice to quit, is a letter sent by the landlord to the tenant notifying them that they should either take or stop a certain action or vacate the rented premises. Eviction notice can be of two types: conditional, when a tenant is given time to remedy the breach of the lease, or unconditional, when a landlord terminates the lease without any alternative options for a tenant. What should an eviction notice include? Information about the tenant and the landlord. The reason for sending the notice. The date by which the tenant should take or stop a certain action. The consequences of noncompliance. The date and way of notice delivery, and the landlord's signature in the form of certificate of service attached to the notice. How to evict a tenant in Maryland. Non-payment notice. There is no statutory grace period for rent payment in the state of Maryland. This enables the landlord to send the notice to the tenant the very next day after the rent is due, unless otherwise stated in the lease. The Maryland legislature does not set the requirement for landlords to send a prior notice to tenants who fail to pay rent after it is due. But the tenant cannot be evicted if they pay past due rent before they are forcibly removed from the rented property. Noncompliance notice. For other types of lease violations, Maryland law does not require the landlord to give the tenant the possibility to correct the issue. But a 30-day notice to quit is always required. If the tenant is involved in any activity that threatens health and safety of the tenant, landlord, or the condition of the property, a 14-day notice is required by state law. What if the tenant fails to comply? If the tenant fails to pay rent due and associated fees or correct the violation, the landlord can file a complaint with the appropriate Maryland court. The filing fee will depend on the county. Then, the summons and complaint should be served on the tenant by the local sheriff or constable before the eviction hearing takes place. In case of non-payment eviction, the tenant has to file an answer with the court, but it is not required for other types of evictions. If the tenant wants to contest the eviction, they should appear for the hearing. If they fail to do it, the court might make a judgment in favor of the landlord by default. If the landlord wins the case, the court will issue a writ of restitution. In Maryland, such an order means that the tenant should be removed from the rental property within 60 days after its issuance. However, if the tenant is evicted for non-payment of rent, they have only 4 days, but they might be granted a 15-day stay of execution.